John, how are you?
Good, how are you? Myself, Buddy. This is Kara.
We are
She's a
both
new AP at the middle school.
Hi. Thank you. What was your name?
Oh, it's just like so relaxed. Also, it's just a good guy. And the fact that he like is Tara 11 or 12 months. I love everything artsy too. It's like, oh yeah, like have you been downtown to like absolutely, yeah. And they were just like, they were like, well, I hate for coming in there already. We had live on here. It looks like we're with you. So anyways, yes.
2 weeks off, and I'm back July 1. Scheduled clearly before I know it's working.
Okay. We'll talk to you. What are the
Cozumel, Cayman Islands, and someplace I forget. I'm not on vacation brain yet, so.
We had a great time.
Who are you?
It was hard to hear that he was Thursday and
Nice to meet you.
is that afterward? Yeah.
It's a case everywhere. So, I mean, you just kept picking them up. It's unbelievable.
Your escape route. Hey Ryan, how are you?
You guys in ready? You're allowed to spread out. Other chairs.
You're good.
Let me call the June 11th River Trails District 26 Board of Education meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. As a reminder, please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Could you please lead me in the Pledge of Allegiance? There's a flag in the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mrs. Johnson, could you please call roll?
Okay. Pfisterer,
Here.
I'm here. Grimpy,
Here.
Camardo,
Here.
Bianchini,
Here.
Friedland,
Here.
and Ronstadt is absent.
Correct, he is on vacation.
Wait, okay, hang on.
Okay, you got it? Next up is the consent agenda. Looking over the consent agenda, are there any items that a member would like to remove to further discuss or has a question of clarification? Okay, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as presented, which includes the following: the personnel report, the treasurer's resolution 2425, district goals, the North Cook Regional Office of Education Intermediate Service Center, IGA for 2425.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Pfisterer, second by Camardo.
Been gone for a while.
Any comments or questions? Last chance before we call a roll.
Hang on. Take action.
Okay.
here we
When
go.
you're
And
ready,
who-
please call roll. It was Pfisterer and Camardo.
Pfisterer and Camardo. Okay, doke. Okay, we're ready. Camardo,
Yes.
Pfisterer,
Yes.
I vote yes. Grimpy,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
and Friedland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'd like to welcome Tara to our family, our middle school family. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations and best of luck to you. Okay, next up is our board communications. This is an open agenda item for all board members. Anything you'd like to share or communicate? Please.
I just wanted to thank everyone who organized and put together the graduations and end of the year ceremonies. I know it's a lot of work and probably is, especially at the end of the year when everything else is going on, but I thought they were flawless and seamless, so good job. And congrats to the graduates.
Great point. Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I just couldn't remember. I feel like it's such a long span between meetings. But no, so the ceremonies for the fifth graders, Becky, you'll have to help me on what the one at IG is. Okay, so they're both called Soar Up. Perfect. Anyways, but they were very cute and it was very sweet. And then also the end of the year bash at Euclid, and Mr. Grimpy attended, and that was really nice. It was great to see how many families were out there. So thank you for all the planning. And yeah, it was just very fun.
And real quick, so Mr. Camardo, Mrs. Friedland, and I, and along with Mr. Whistler, worked at Grace Lutheran Church on Saturday. They did a Living Green Expo for the community. They had a lot of vendors and suppliers who are just like, there was a solar panel sales guy there. There was people who help with compost, and there's a lot of different organizations within the community that just kind of assist with trying to go green, as does the church there at Euclid and Wolf. So we had a nice turnout. We had all our boards up to kind of talk about Euclid and all the construction that's going on there. And we probably talked to a dozen and a half families or so. So it was a nice turnout, aside from all the cicadas and the threat of rain. We did have a nice afternoon. So thanks to the board members who were able to help. And of course, thanks to Dan, who was instrumental in bringing the panels and help us out with that. So that was a nice event. Okay, next up is district recognition. Nanya Energy Advisors has planted 13 new trees to help offset the carbon emissions as we work in conjunction with Nanya. They're the solar panel provider, correct? Mm-hmm. You know what I couldn't tell? Are the trees going around our property, or they're just planting them in general?
I think they're planting them in general. Do you know, Wendell?
I believe they're planting them in general. They'll also help us find an energy provider too for our electricity.
Oh, okay, great. All right, next up is RTEA comments. You have the floor, sir. Good to see you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. On behalf of the RTA Executive Committee and the entire membership, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and the administration for the wonderful continued working relationship that we have. I'd also be remiss if I didn't extend my congratulations to Dr. Schuster on her upcoming retirement. I think that Mr. Barry's a great replacement, but Lyndall, you are quite a legend, and you will be sorely missed. I've been over to Euclid recently, and I think that you, the board, have made an excellent investment, and hopefully you will continue to make the same investment going forward with Indian Grove and eventually with River Trails. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I hope everybody enjoys their summer vacation while all that work is being done. Okay, next up is visitors' comments. At this time, I'd like to recognize any members of the audience who approach the board with their comment or question by completing a visitor comment card. Please do note that the board and administration typically does not respond, and if you wish for a response, please provide your name, phone number, and or email address so that the board and administration could get back to you. Speakers are encouraged to limit their time for others to participate at a 3-minute time limit per speaker, with an overall 60-minute maximum for visitors' comments. A majority of the board can vote to extend time as deemed per our appropriate policy. Okay, hearing none. we'll move on to new business. First up is education services.
So I'm going to have Dr. Cohen come up first and speak to the first couple of bullet points.
Okay, so I'm up here today to discuss with you some reasons why we need some additional staffing to ensure that all of our students are best supported. So we are going to be asking for additional staffing in 2 of our buildings. First, Prairie Trails, where we're asking for, I'm recommending 2 additional paraprofessionals to support our early childhood and our kindergartners. The memo really lays out, in as much detail as I could, the reasons, the history, the trends, the summaries of our programming, and why we have some of these needs. But additionally, what I really want to make sure that you understand, or that I can convey the best I can, is that the trends are increasing as far as our numbers of students in early childhood coming out of early intervention into early childhood. So we have an obligation to provide early childhood education to any students eligible for special education. And they can come to us a number of ways. They can come to us either through early intervention, where they receive special education birth to 3, at which point they age out at their 3rd birthday. And then it's the district's responsibility to provide special education if they remain eligible. So that's one way that we receive some of our students. The other way is through our Child Find obligation of providing screenings every month. So at these screenings, we have parents or families come in with their little children with whatever concerns they have. It might just be that they feel like there's some delay, they're not sure what it is, or maybe it's just speech, but some way, and then we decide based on that screening if we're going to move into an evaluation. The number of students that we have coming to us, both through the intervention, the early intervention, and the screenings, is increasing at a very high rate. And the number of students being eligible is also increasing. So based on that, we're really looking at changing some of our models of how we're providing our services so that students get an equitable experience, both with students with disabilities and without, so that we are maximizing the services that they're receiving. Based on that, we're moving from one self-contained, kind of a separate self-contained classroom that really met our students with intense special ed needs, to being able to provide this blended programming where they're together with more typical students. They still receive all of the services, but that way they have some role models and students learn together. So based on that, we do need more support. And so for Prairie Trails, we're looking at support for our early childhood program, as well as for our kindergarten program, because we're trying the best we can to keep our students within our own district rather than outplacing them. And with that, we are finding that students moving into our kindergarten program then are also experiencing some pretty significant needs. So for Prairie Trails, we're looking for 1 additional parapro to support our early childhood program, and 1 to support students that we're maintaining within district in the kindergarten program. Questions on that before? Okay.
If you're going to ask questions.
Sorry, I know. I just want to make sure it's clear with what
I always have questions.
Okay.
So as more children are identified when they're 3 that come into our program, does that then put a cap on how many typicals?
That's a good question. So we try to save as many spots. Our obligation is to save spots for students with special education who need those services. We can't say no.
Right.
Based on that, Amy and Natalie have worked really hard to ensure that our classrooms are evenly spread out and also have a number of spots for typical students. So I will say that over the course of the year, our students with disabilities may grow throughout the year, But we have saved, I would say, for this coming year, more spots for typical students because we have a waiting list. Our program is very popular. People in the community are aware of it. We want to offer as many spots as we can to the tuition typical students, but our obligation is to the students with disabilities. So we do have spots, typical spots in all of them, and I think they're already filled for the year. So then we maintain a waiting list and get to them as we can. But there will be students who are typical students and students with disabilities in each of our 6 sections.
So do we have a typical cap for typicals?
Right now we do just because, so for this year with our new programming, where we're spreading it out over 6, sections, we are capping how many typical students in each section to see how this goes. And then if it works well for this year, because we've increased our cap for this year, then we'll see about next year if we can do a couple more. But we have to be careful how big these classrooms can get.
Correct. Okay. And I would also think that as more special ed kids are coming in and the typicals are falling off, or you're squeezing the typicals, okay, they're the ones paying the tuition.
Yes.
So when we as a board do student fees, we have to look at that and say, let's not have these five typical families in every classroom carry the brunt of the tuition. Do you follow what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes. So
we'll have to look at that when we get to that, but I would want that number when we get to student fees. We have to look. You can't throw the whole burden on
Yeah, and I think
ones that are left.
the tuition, Lyndall probably knows exactly what it doesn't cover, obviously, the cost of running the program.
Not at all.
But this has just been an ongoing, because the model, because of the state, and this is what it is. This has kind of just been an ongoing, we
okay.
collect what we can, but we know
It doesn't
it's
come close to
nothing
covering.
near.
It doesn't, okay.
No,
got it.
and we look at what other schools are charging and base the tuition more on that than the cost of actually running the school.
There are also instances, at least a couple every year, where students will start as typical. And then as the year progresses, we may notice that they're actually eligible. So we're not just then keeping them as typical. We do have that flexibility. If they
Okay.
need services, they're provided those
Got it.
services. We're
Oh,
not
glad to
counting on
hear
them
that.
for tuition.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
The other building that I'm recommending have additional paraprofessional support is Indian Grove. Our overall enrollment at Indian Grove may have decreased over the years, and you saw the trends. However, our number of students eligible for special education continues to increase. This coming year, our case managers will have the highest caseloads they've had. We did have conversations about, are we able to support this with 3 special education teachers? What is our best way of making sure that all students have the supports that we have? We're really being very strategic with placement for students and trying to make sure that they have as much access to general education as possible. And so within both elementary buildings, we're looking at caseloads, we're looking at academic needs and functional needs, and what can we do best so that students are receiving the supports they need and access to general education core grade level content. And with that being said, at Indian Grove, they've really done a really nice job. We're seeing good growth. We're seeing more access into general education. This past year in math in particular, with a brand new curriculum, we had more students, especially in 5th grade, entering their general education classroom. They did require more paraprofessional support for their functional needs, but we saw great growth with them as far as their IEP goals, their ability to interact and participate in general education classes, and that's the trend we want to continue. So with that being said, their numbers of students with special education for next year, just at the beginning of the year, we always have a few more during the year, they're starting at 40 students eligible. And, you know, it is a great thing that we're able to service our students in their own home school. That's our goal. But with that being said, it does mean that we do need more support. So I'm coming to you asking for 2 paraprofessionals for Prairie Trails and 1 paraprofessional for Indian Grove so that we can keep our kids in their home school and receiving the services they need and as much access as they can to their general education classroom with their typical peers.
I have one more question too, and this isn't necessarily for Carrie, but are we fully staffed at Prairie Trails NIG for instructional assistants?
So Prairie
teachers?
Trails is actually going to be hiring several for this coming school year. I think we're looking at 5 potentially.
Okay, because
so
of
they will be hiring.
Yeah, of resignation. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 personnel reports probably have most all of them on there, so.
Okay. The 2 okay. Well, I mean, I saw those. I just wasn't sure. If
But
we had-
otherwise, all year fully staffed, yeah. She was staffed early, she was the first one staffed at the start of the school year. We heard about that every meeting.
And I think Indian Grove may have some paraprofessional as well, or are you? You're fully staffed then? Okay, great.
Okay. And it's looking positive for obviously everyone sticking around, hopefully. Okay.
I didn't have kind of a question. So you mentioned it. It's not really related to the paraprofessional, but I wanted to point out the services. So some students are eligible just to come before they enter kindergarten, just to come for speech or PT or other things. And I just wanted to point out that that's a service that we offer. I know I took advantage of it for one of my kids. So
yeah,
I
we
think
do offer
sometimes
itinerant
people aren't aware that
Thank
it's
you.
available.
That's true.
I just had a comment as well. And first, I just really appreciate so much the thought that's going into this. As I think across the board and throughout the country, we're seeing these trends in education of higher numbers of special education kids, not only with the quantity, but the intensity of the needs that we're seeing. So thank you so much for recognizing this and continuing to bring this to the forefront. And then to go off of what Becky had said, just identifying these services as exemplary services that we as a district are able to do to keep our kids in-house rather than sending them out for services through providing these additional assistance, even with the growing numbers. I really appreciate that and appreciate the thought that went into this. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Jody, this might be for you. How's the budget looking for? Is there room for all 4?
Well, I mean, we talk about some of these contingencies and some of these questionables that would come up. I mean, Lyndall would know better, but I know Lyndall's good about
I put
adding
them in
some
the budget that
extras.
you'll see next week.
Yay.
And I mean, again, like Carrie has worked really hard to, and probably Bill and Emily, putting students with teachers for caseloads is a really complex task because you want to make sure that the teacher obviously can service the kids, but that they can be with that grade level as well. So being able and being thorough in that task and not having to add a special education teacher is a better staffing solution if you can make that work. But you have to sometimes push back on the principal and the assistant principal to go back to the drawing board to make those caseloads work. And so an assistant is a better approach staffing-wise, financially also, and still can support kids in a nice, successful way.
And this will be on the consent agenda next meeting? Okay. Thank you. Next up is Business Services, Human Resources Assistant.
I'll take that. Lyndall, take a break. So I put some background in here because I just wanted to refresh your guys' memory. Back in September of 22, we came to you to ask for a support person, a temporary support person to help us catch up in the business office. We had some resignations at the time, but we were also really trying to make some advances with our systems and automating things. We had hired in the past, prior to that, part-time summer work and just people here and there and never seemed to catch up. So that was back in September of 22. So that was going so well that I came back to you again at the beginning or at spring of 23 and said, okay, we need this person one more year. And as you can see, even since then, we had some resignations. We've had quite a bit of turnover in the business office. And even, I think I recall when I wrote that memo in March of 23, Lyndall and Tracy would be the only 2 left in the business office with any history on how things are run. So we operate in a lean office anyway, staff-wise, so cross-training, obviously, we're not there yet. There's lots of things that we're not there yet because people are still learning their jobs. There is also, as I wrote, some increase in paperwork and filing and tracking of our employees. And so our last resignation that's still open is the business service assistant who resigned in April. So I literally took the last 6-8 weeks and questioned whether or not we need to fill that spot, right? We have this extra HR assistant. Can we do this work with our existing staff? Patty right now is taking on the summer school transportation. Everybody has taken on a piece of it, and it's working. They're doing it. Obviously, we haven't started school, so the bulk of the transportation hasn't started yet. But I just don't see that that's going to be sustainable for like their mental health, for Ryan's mental health, and the job has been splintered so much that the flow of the work isn't really great right now. Like everybody's got a little bit of the business services assistant, and I just worry about this trend continuing if we can't stabilize the office. And so Lyndall had already built this into the initial staffing plan that you saw because obviously she saw the need and to continue it. But I wanted to bring that back and specifically talk about it just to give a little bit more background because I just wanted to be open and transparent. So it's really brief, but this is my third time bringing this forward. So do you have any questions?
Yeah, this is just an information item, so
Yeah.
There's no motion, so if anybody has any questions, now or never.
You didn't turn your mic on. I serve on the benefits committee, and there is a constant need from the teachers and the staff for more personal HR an exchange between them all the time. So when I was reading your background and everything, I was thinking, oh, this is perfect. This is what we need, because the teachers and staff, new teachers come in and they're they don't exactly know what they're supposed to be doing, and teachers are assigned to them, and listening to the teachers while I'm sitting there, this would be beneficial for them.
Well, one example is right now, Lisa goes out to all the buildings when it's open enrollment, and we'll sit there for a day, a couple days if she needs to be there for the staff. There's no way she would be able to do that kind of, face service if she had to do more paperwork. So, I'm more of a human interaction person. So for me, that personal touch in the office, welcoming new teachers, being able to meet with new teachers and onboard them and make sure that, they have what they need. Those are things that are important to me, and I see that to be the first thing to go. So,
yeah, and we have so many more new staff, it seems, over the last few years, and that just takes time to get them hired, onboarded, get them in the system, help them when they need help.
Anybody else? Okay, also consent agenda? Okie doke. Next up is the district and building end of the year report. Also an information item. Who's got this?
Is this the big one? Yeah.
You talking about me?
We all got this. Okay, you guys gonna wait until the last minute to come up, huh? No, that's okay. Yeah. Yes. Oh, we got the whole crew. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, everybody's coming up. Okay, let's give this. Okay, you've seen this. Obviously, we're going to be talking about these 3 areas tonight, and really it's a year in review. I'm going to invert this and start big with a strategic plan and work our way down to the buildings. So one of the pieces I wanted to highlight, you guys have seen the goals quite a bit, but I did want to talk about where we are in relation, like specifically to these goals. So Christy's going to take the head ready, and then I'll take the heart ready. So kind of like, where are we right now with that goal of 65%? You want that?
You know what? You can go ahead and just click to the next slide, actually. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you this night. I'm going to be focusing in on the academic achievement and the progress that we've made over the course of the last year specifically, look at a little bit of trend data. But I think the most important thing to know when we're looking at academic data is we need to look at it from multiple perspectives. While our strategic goal focuses solely on growth and individual growth of students, it is best to present both growth and achievement. And what do I mean by that? Well, looking at the slide in front of you here, let's go ahead and let's start with achievement. Those achievement scores are basically telling us how we're doing in comparison to the normal population. So for instance, in English language arts, we are performing at or above 59% of the normal population across the nation. And in the area of mathematics, we are outperforming 71% of the population. We are very, very proud of these scores and very, very proud of the work that our teachers and our principals and our assistant principals are doing to make this work happen. But we also need to look at that perspective of individual growth for students. And that is what the Strategic Planning Committee tasked us with almost 5 years ago now, was to really look at, okay, so some of our students may be already achieving at a typical score that's normalized in the population. However, are they growing the amount they should grow from year to year? So in order to do this, we do look at a growth measure. Now, I would like the board to understand that following the rules of statistics, what we would typically expect to see is 50% of our students meeting their growth score. And this is due to regions of error, margins of error. But if you see a 50% score, you are performing at an average rate. So in our strategic our strategic planning group, set a very ambitious goal for our district by 2025 in the hopes to see 65% of our students meeting and achieving their growth scores. That is very ambitious, with 50 being the benchmark. However, as you can see, we have hit this in one of our 2 academic areas this school year, and that's in the area of mathematics. And we're very, very proud of that work. We are continuing to make progress in English language arts, but we aren't there quite yet. So we are continuing to look at how do we differentiate our teaching, how do we meet our students where they're at, and help them achieve those individualized growth goals so that our growth can continue to grow at that same rate as our achievement scores. One last area that is not part of our strategic plan, but I would really like to focus in on and celebrate, is the growth of our English language learners. So for those of you that are unaware with how we measure language growth of our students who are learning English as a second language, they annually take an assessment called the Access Test. The Access Test tests the 4 domains of language: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The students are assessed in all 4 areas, and they need to earn a composite score of 4.8 in order to say that their English language skills are equal to that of a first language English-speaking student. And as you can see there in the data presented before you this evening, this year was a tremendous year of growth for our English language learners. Over the course of the last several years, the last 2 specifically noted here, we've had approximately 35 students exit by means of hitting that 4.8 score. And this year, we hit 45 students, which is a huge accomplishment. This speaks to the hard work of our staff, to our administrators, to our teachers, and to our students in really focusing in on thinking differently on how we provide services, breaking down silos of old practices, and really meeting our students where they're at. So overall, we are very, very happy with our achievement, our growth, and our English language progress over the course of the last school year. We look forward to sharing the IAR scores with you when they come to us in the fall.
When you say composite score of 4.8 out of what?
A 6-point scale.
6. Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is, I'm looking at the math achievement growth, and I'm wondering, rule of thumb says when you get a new series, it takes almost 3 years for everybody to kind of fall into the new series, math series, et cetera. And I know we got a math series coming up in the next agenda item.
We do.
How's that going to affect the growth?
Well, there's a couple of things to consider with this growth, and I've noted up at the top. The assessment has changed slightly this year. They have a new algorithm that they put into place. That new algorithm, basically what it did is prior to this year, a student who was given a test of a complexity of, let's say, a 210 on a MAP scale, that's called a RIT, a 210 RIT, I might have received the same question as a third grader, as a fifth grader, as a second grader. This year, the test became more adaptive in nature, meaning that they gave me a complex question with grade level content that I understood. So they switched the algorithm significantly this year. So that is one leveling factor that we're unsure what it's going to look like when we're looking down the road a couple years. While I would love to stand before you this evening and say this was all due to the great work of our committee last year who adapted this fantastic new series, I'm not there quite yet.
Okay.
So we don't really know. We need to see how that levels out. I'd also like to see how IAR looks to get a more global perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Just a clarification on the new RIT measurement. So that was into effect to measure the 23-24 growth percent?
Yep.
So it's not 100% the measurement apples to apples, but
Correct.
based on the new scoring, this is where we're at.
You got it. So looking at last year, that was the old algorithm. Looking at this year, that's the new algorithm.
How many, on the language acquisition, has the number of students within that program grown as well, or is it they remain stable?
We hover right around 270, and sometimes we'll get up into the 300s. During COVID, we spiked significantly, especially at the middle school. Once students hit the middle school, the complexity of the assessment increases significantly. It's very, very hard for middle schoolers to exit on that assessment. We are proud to say that this year we had 2 exit, which is excellent, which is absolutely fantastic. So yes, that's if that answers your question. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Jody.
Okay, so looking at that Heart Ready goal, again, as Christy said, we created these specific targets in 2019. The only thing that we had to measure any sort of Heart Ready was the 5 essentials. So we picked that thing apart, we looked at it and kind of talked about like, all right, what's in our plan that we could pull out of the 5 essentials that best could represent a score for us. So we settled on looking at supportive environment, grit, and emotional health. And so our goal was to have those 3 areas. There's more areas on the 5 essentials, but those 3 areas hit more or most organized by 2025. So in true fashion in the state of Illinois, that survey has changed drastically. So some of these slides are brand new. These results were supposed to be to us in May. I emailed them twice saying, when are these reports coming? They're like, oh, they're coming in May. Well, they came Friday night at 10:30 p.m. So that was my Saturday morning. It was just kind of digging through that. But so I added them because it was really important to me to kind of do this comparison. But they dropped the grit and emotional health scale the year after we put it on there as our target. And they changed the rating scales from more or most to strong, very strong. So the supportive environment domain has remained constant. There's 4 sub areas that make that up. But again, like I don't know the ins and outs of the survey that well to know if the scale itself has changed. Did they just swap words? So I think, even what Christy was saying, like we tried our best in 2019 to come up with a measurement that we thought we could really be happy with 5 years down the road. But we've learned that the assessments change, the surveys change. And so these long-term goals are just hard to continue to track. So this is where we're at as a district in the last 4 years with supportive environment. So this is the district as a whole, which is a straight average of scores. So it takes the 3 buildings, it's student reported, so it's Euclid, Indian Grove, and River Trails Middle, and it's just a straight average. And so the 4 domains that make that up are charted in the lighter levels, but you can see that I'm guessing strong and very strong would have correlated to most and more in most levels. So you can see some shifts in the trends over the last couple of years. Nothing major, but when I break that out by building, on the far left column is that average score. So 59 is our district average, and then it breaks it out by each building. You'll see Prairie Trails is NA because, again, the students take the survey. And then the plus or minus is just the change in score from the year prior. So you can see some positive things. And again, like that's what the survey is. The buildings, even on Monday, so they got this at 10:30 on Friday night. I talked to most principals in a like one-on-one before, mostly all of them yesterday, and they've already been digging into this. So that makes me happy that they're getting these reports and digging into it, but this is just a snapshot again. So what we did was, now that we have Panorama, obviously that's something that we take more frequently, and we get instant feedback on Panorama. It's not like we're waiting until June to get results, and we can't go back to our staff right now in June because they're gone for the summer to talk about the 5 essentials. So some of these areas that we pulled from the Panorama data probably most closely correlate with the sections that we were originally thinking in our Heart Ready target. And you guys have seen these scores before. They've all been favorable, but what Panorama allows us to do is give it in the fall, make adjustments, target some areas, meet with the staff, make a plan, and then also give it again in the spring and see what has changed. So with these assessments, we get more immediate results. So that's what we have to measure our Heart Ready. I'm assuming at some point you guys would want to see more as a district report because it is very interesting from the 5 essentials. So I kind of jotted that down as maybe a future presentation for you. Okay, shifting over to district goals, I'm going to have Alicia and Carrie come up and kind of unpack these areas.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about collaboration. These are the buckets areas that we are looking at for growth in our district goal areas. Collaboration being the area where we're really just trying to enhance and improve building culture and climate. And these are just some examples as an idea of the work that was done over the past year. So some of them being meeting structures have been improved or adjusted, meaning that we're using common agendas so that we know our outcomes, that we have two-way participation in our meetings. Our entire administrative team and our instructional coaches have all gone through NSSEO's adaptive schools training. And so we're really working on implementing those strategies in our agendas and our time together for full participation. We've also improved our MTSS processes, both working on systems for academic and social emotional supports that students need at various tiers. We've had some successful grant opportunities, both as a district and internally. Food services had some grants, transportation. We had some ed tech grants internally, so lots of celebrations and recognition there. And our tech committee successes, both on prioritizing projects that need to be done.
And I'll be discussing our curricular district goals, the summary from this year. And so the curricular bucket is really looking at student-facing items. So both what they're learning academically, the technology they're working with, and how the staff are being trained to support students in these curricular areas. So we have had our new elementary math curriculum rolled out this year, as well as new SEL and special education curriculum rolled out. And then we also have had several curricular alignments and discussions for middle school math and for PE, other exploratory courses, as well as the Encore courses, as well as the LMC, elementary LMC had a curricular alignment as well. The literacy also had some common assessment work done together to kind of rework and reform literacy common assessments. Of course, we've had a lot of innovation kind of changes and new directions using the FREEDOM acronym, the flexible, reliable, engaging, and empowering, to go and move towards the panels, the interactive flat panels, as well as the touchscreen Chromebooks for students. So these are kind of new exciting directions in how we utilize technology with our students in classes. And then, of course, to support all of these things, we've had a lot of targeted professional development, and that will definitely continue. So we partner with our vendors for some of these different curriculum platforms, as well as with NSSEO, and of course, as well as just with our internal staff resources that we have to make sure that teachers are prepared to support these new initiatives.
Under the community goal, we're always looking for ways to strengthen our two-way communication and our partnerships with our community. So in our food services department, we've worked on really getting input from students and making sure that we're sharing information with the community. Board meetings, we've seen a different way of being in the different buildings and rotating through the district, as well as making sure that there's board presence at various events throughout the year. We had the revival of the BPAC, which was a great celebration for us this year, and getting more partnership with parent advisory committees. Our early childhood screenings, we've received some feedback at the beginning of the school year from some families and really took that to heart. And Natalie and Amy worked really hard on making some adjustments to our early childhood screenings to make sure the parents coming in with their youngest learners are comfortable and that everyone feels like there's a strong relationship as they walk into that building for the first time. And then improved systems, registration, and residency, just as an initial example of some systems we're looking at district-wide to make sure that it's working from all areas. I don't have the clicker, but the next slide does give you even more examples of all of these areas. Okay.
So we're not going to go through all of those, but we could if you'd like. So next, moving on to the school goals. So this year was a little bit different. We had the buildings come present to you a little bit more in depth. So this is a little bit different for us. And I asked the buildings, like, obviously I don't want you to go in depth and recite everything that you worked on, but really just kind of like summarize a bucket area or something that, you really felt like you wrapped up this year or that you can celebrate. In talking with all of them, a lot of their work, a lot of them are working on a lot of the same things. And so you would hear a lot of repetition if they commented on everything. So you'll hear them highlight some of the work that they really completed this year. And next year, we're looking forward to kind of continuing that tour of their work. And we'll look ahead after that.
Good evening. So it feels like I was just here not so long ago talking about Prairie Trails. And so when Jody asked us to share a few thoughts about our year, one of the things I chose that I was most proud of was the math, and really looking at how we are focused on improving math and the math foundational skills. Back in April, when I presented to you, we talked about how our 3 C's kind of all started to intersect. So when we're talking about community and curriculum and collaboration, it was kind of hard to put them all into separate buckets because they all really kind of came together. And really when I kind of took a step back, really the convergence of our math, collaboration, and curriculum was really one of the things at the forefront of our work at Prairie Trails this year. So we were tasked with implementing a new curriculum. As we built the capacity and efficacy in our classrooms, we also focused a lot on that collaboration among our staff. And we really did that through innovative ways to plan and really be able for our teachers to come into the classroom every day, feel supported, confident, and ready to teach our kids with a brand new curriculum that they just received, as they were coming in on Institute Day. So we really had a lot of work to do. Since our inception 3 years ago, we definitely worked tirelessly on providing those equitable experiences to all of our learners. We really value our Thursday mornings, and we use that time for professional development, for planning, common team planning, professional development, and then we also really worked on preparing our weekly lessons for math. And our teachers were really appreciative of the time. The time was so well spent that we're also going to kind of shift also the way that we were planning to do the same thing with our English language arts moving forward for next year. It was a really valuable use of our time. The result was definitely increased teacher confidence in delivering the curriculum and moreover that equitable experiences for all of our learners in our building. Looking at next year, we're going to continue to benchmark, planning similarly, introducing that community piece of it. We did a family literacy night, a lot of other community events this past year. Next year, we're going to kind of slip over and add math and STEM into an evening for our families to come in. And as we move forward, our commitment to continuous improvement and innovation really remains steadfast. That's our goal. We're looking forward to another year of growth and learning and collaboration, and definitely ensuring those equitable learning experiences across the board for our students, but also our staff too. So thank you.
I'm going to start with a little story about Lisa, whose name isn't Lisa, but I changed it to protect her identity. Lisa was a student at Euclid, is no longer because she's coming over to River Trails Middle School, but by September 20th, Lisa had missed 27% of her school days. She had missed 6 days out of 22. And I know that because at Euclid, we started a system of communication that began with our attendance records, went to our SEL team, who includes our social workers, our psychologists, and both of our school administrators. And that conversation continues then to teachers, parents, and then into action. So Lisa was someone we targeted starting right away in September. Within 1 month, that 27% was down to 16%. Still chronic, but much improved. She had time with a social worker with whom she had an amazing relationship with. The social worker had a wonderful relationship with her mom. The homeroom teacher made sure she was closely connected with the student and the parent, even in spite of a language barrier. And the admin team were basic cheerleaders. Every time we saw Lisa come in the building, it was a hug, it was a high five, it was a, we are so happy you are here today. I share this with you because Lisa maintained that 16% for the rest of the school year, which still calls her chronically absent. However, after February 7th, she only missed 5 days of school. That's a 7% absence rate. That is healthy. And the system we put in place and made sure we had relationships and connections and reason to be there, that's the attendance intervention that makes the difference. So I share that story with you because you were worried, very worried as a board, as you should be, with the attendance rates of not only our schools, but just nationally. And nationally, they still sit at about 30% chronic absentee rates. At Euclid, and I can only speak for Euclid in this moment, 2 years ago, we sat at 23% at the end of the year. Last year, we were 16%, which isn't good, but much better than 30. This year, we landed, and when I met with you several months ago, we were still at a 14% chronic absentee rate. However, because of the constant communication and data collection and individualized analysis that our SEL team takes for these kids, I can tell you still that out of 48 kids who were chronically absent, 25 of them went on vacations, long ones. So that means the chronic absent kids who we have control over, who we can say, why are you not here? Let's get you here. Let's build these relationships because you're bored, you're not motivated, you're disconnected, you're anxious. All of those various reasons that keep kids home from school, it's only 7%. And that's super healthy. So the state sees 14%. It doesn't account for those long absences. You get that bad flu, you're out for 7 days. You're allowed 17 days. As soon as you hit day 17, you're chronically absent. So when Lisa hit 6 days after the first month, it was really tough for her to have a healthy experience with any illnesses or family things or whatever keeps us all at home. And no longer be chronically absent. So the important journey in this is that Euclid's created a system that now is in place and communicates and assigns roles for social workers, for teachers, for parents with kids. We're building relationships and mentoring, and it's making a difference. So that's what I wanted to share with you about the attendance goal.
I assume it's me next. When Dr. Megerly tasked us with thinking about the year and, what is it that we are most proud of, what we got done, your brain goes to all of the specific things right away. After going through all of the work that we had done over the past 180 or so days, I start to realize that the common thread between all of them was all the work that we did together. And it was that collaboration that helped us do what we were able to do. And it's something that wasn't just this year. It started years ago. Dr. Cohen mentioned the adaptive schools training, which I think I said last time I was up here. I'll say it again. It was probably the best professional development, professional learning that I've done. Kyle and I were actually just talking about how we need to make sure to look out for the calendar so we can get our new assistant principals into that once the school year starts as well. But thinking about how we're tapping into the skills that were taught during that to really facilitate the learning of the very talented people that work in our buildings, and tapping into the fact that their professional knowledge is greater than any of our individual knowledge. So for everything that we had done this year, really it comes down to the collaborative work of our school improvement team. So it started last year in April. I had tasked them, we were looking through our data for last school year and asked them to come at our final meeting in May, come with some ideas that you want to build into our professional development plan for the 23-24 school year. Be ready to advocate for the things that you think that we should do. And the big themes that came out of that were the idea of building community through celebrations and really targeting in on our own professional learning to make it meaningful for us and to make it embedded into the things that we're already doing. And that was a big part of my presentation back in February with the idea of the targeted Tuesdays and our ability to kind of tap into the things that the teachers were doing and wanted to do to further along related to our building goals and to the related to the district goals. That ended up being more meaningful than I could have imagined when we started, just because of how they picked up on everything. They got ideas. They had opportunities to share with each other at the beginning of our staff meetings. I gave a couple minutes each time, share the things that your teams are working on. They were able to give feedback, hear things, start running with new ideas. By the time we got to the end of the year, if there were 3 or 4 different things that had spread in so many different ways, it was just really cool to watch from my perspective. It's inspiring to see other people inspired by each other. So that's where, that's the cycle of it starts at the end of the year. We get ideas, we plan for it at the beginning of the year, we test it out, and now this is the time of year at the end of the year again where we look at it again. We look to see how did we do this year? What do we need to implement or change for next year? It just keeps going around and around. We did the same thing at the end of this school year. Our school improvement team, I asked them to come with ideas that they want for next school year, and those are the things that I'm sifting through and working around right now as we plan out. So Dr. Megerly was right. It was actually, I found it very hard just to kind of narrow down some things to talk about. So I did put some things into 2 buckets, head ready and heart ready, because we did a lot of great work this year in both areas. And it kind of stemmed from, we obviously had a big structural change in our building with the block schedule. So it afforded us with different both academic interventions as well as increased academic time in some classrooms as well too. So this year was kind of the big focus on, now that we have this time and are used to it, it's what are we doing with it to make it the most meaningful. So with some academic adjustments, we were able to really hone in on some of our intervention classes, as well as for interventions or things that students might need
that aren't in those intervention classes. So that entailed looking at in-class interventions, because like I said, we had some time, extra time in some of our academic classes with our students, so making the most use of that time to give students what they need. And that was kind of the big focus for both our academic and for our student social emotionally this year. With all of that, we were able to gather a bunch more data, which is really helpful to track our students' growth and sometimes, unfortunately, lack thereof, to determine the best placement for the students, to give them what they need. And now our students' specific interventions are attached to standards that are with their grade level. That way we can, again, both inside the general education classroom setting and the intervention classroom setting, be able to progress their growth throughout that specific standard. We kind of noticed through these academic adoptions kind of how well it was starting to flow and build into a true system. So we really looked at our social emotional learning and tried to kind of make it fit that mold as well. And that's where the Heart Ready piece comes in. So we again looked at wanted to make sure we're making data-informed decisions and looking at some of those pieces to help us identify students who maybe aren't struggling academically, but middle school is an interesting time. So really want to make sure we're caring for the whole child as well. That way when we're excited to have Lisa next year that Mrs. Daly talked about, that we don't let all the great work that was done with her at Euclid fall through the cracks or have to start back over once it can just carry over into the middle school. So we aligned certain supports and interventions for our students' social emotional learning and made sure to align them with the 5 CASTLE competencies. We also did a lot of work. Our social workers and our school psychologists, along with Dr. Cohen, did a ton of work kind of piloting and reviewing a bunch of different social emotional curriculums, which we adopted one and we'll start that next year, which we're very excited about. And then really just, again, proud to continue to make the students' academic success along with their well-being a priority and making sure we're focusing on giving students what they need.
Okay, so what's next, right? Never stops. Looking ahead, so this is just a glimpse of the goals that you approved in the consent agenda tonight. So really our next step is consolidating, institutionalizing, taking all of these things and making it our everyday work. I have such a great team, like just sitting here listening to them speak passionately about what they do. It is so great to be able to work with teams like that. I mean, even this presentation tonight, like, hey guys, report out really briefly, very general. They're like, man, we just reported out to the board. You want me to do this again? But then they really are so in tune with their work, not only in their building with each other, that I just love listening to you guys speak. But anyways, so I bring these goals to them already and say, all right, here's our direction for next year. I want to meet with you in a couple weeks, see what you're thinking, see what your direction is. So I've already met with them all. They already had to have a, one-on-one meeting with me to see what their direction is. And I know they just got out of school 2 weeks ago, but I'm asking them to think about August. And then we'll regroup again in August. I let that simmer in their mind while they go on vacation and hopefully take some time off. But I want them kind of, thinking about where they want to launch and where they want to go with their work. And so for all of us, it's a continuation of the work that we've been doing, but really continue to go deeper to ingrain it into our systems, and so that it's just not a thing that we check off, oh, I did that. It becomes what becomes our everyday work. So that's really the goal for next year. Just kind of in terms of a timeline, we will continue to do the building presentations throughout the course of the winter months, and then bring this back to you again to summarize the year. And in between there, I always layer in like the budget and the approval of the budget because, our resources support that work. So the budget, the human resources, the financial resources, the time is also a key component in our work and in our cycle. So just wanted to put that up there. So thank you again to my team and for all your guys' hard work this year. I mean, I know it trickles down all the way to the teachers and all of our employees, but we could stand up here and talk about all these things that we've accomplished in this last year. But overall, we really are accomplishing some great things. I mean, even just listening to them, these things did not exist 3 or 4 years ago. MTSS in the middle school, not even existed. Didn't want it. It was nowhere. So we're making some really great work, and I'm excited to, see where we continue to go. So thanks, everyone.
Does anybody have any questions for the team? Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just want to say, as a senior member on the board, I like this format. Tons better than what we were getting before. This is so germane just to what you're doing, and it's obvious to me that you are listening to concerns and questions that we have had up here and then taking them back and address those concerns. That might be because Jody's taking notes over here and saying, make sure you hit this point. But this is phenomenal. It is, kudos to you too for spearheading this and coming up with this. You guys, you do work nice as a team. I like it. It's real. You can tell you all work well together, and that Jody works well with all of you. And I just sitting here, I was thinking to myself, I just wanted to say after each one, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Thanks, Donna. Next. Anybody else? Please.
Okay. Everything that Donna said, plus I think it's very evident the alignment we have from the very beginning until the end of the elementary side being in this district. As far as I know, there's not a lot of elementary school districts that have 3 independent buildings, right? I mean, it's usually like a K through 5 or 6 and then the 7th or 8th. So to have that alignment through 3 different principles and that same continuity of messaging from the very beginning, Prairie Trails, of grades. I'm saying Euclid and Indian Grove, grade segments. No, I'm not. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The 3 grade segments. I don't want to rumble. No, I think that's very, very impressive to have that kind of alignment because I think it's very difficult to achieve, but that continuity shows throughout everybody's presentation that focus, and I think it starts with you, getting everybody in that direction. So keep sharing. Use what Bill is saying about together. Use Karen's attendance. Together, use it all. I think that's a great example to spread out and continue to share those ideas. Thank you.
It's sinking in with us, too.
So as the second oldest tenured board member, there were times where I wasn't sure the middle school principal knew our elementary school principals. So this is just, it blows me away. I couldn't be more proud of you guys and proud of the presentation and proud of the work that you're doing and proud of the students that are succeeding because of the work you're doing. So absolutely, please keep it up. All right, next up is the middle school math adoption. This is an action item.
I'm back. Okay. You saw in your board packet something that looked very similar to what you saw from me last month, introducing the process and all the different things that had taken place over the course of the year to encapsulate the work that we were doing to study our middle school math curriculum. I'm back here tonight to reveal kind of where we have landed and ask the board for your approval in our adoption. And I would like to begin just kind of on the heels of where our administrators just left off on collaboration. In front of you is our belief statement that was crafted by our middle school math teachers that I think really echoes the sentiments that you had in front of you of your principals this evening. Collaboration and being on the same page is something that makes this district very unique. When I worked with the teachers, they worked in isolation first to craft this belief statement. They wrote down their own ideas, they wrote down what they believed, and then they came together and they compared them. And what was absolutely astounding and fantastic was that they were almost synonymous. And that's what's presented before you this evening. And why is that so important when we're looking at a math adoption? Well, we need to believe in order to really put forth our best effort and our alignment and our fidelity with our students. And our teachers' beliefs are so in alignment that I am confident that I can trust the direction that they want to go and that we can move forward together to make our instruction even better. And as you saw in my very brief slide just a little bit earlier, our math achievement is phenomenal. So what I came with tonight was a report card. Patty, can you help me? This is free. Oh, there we go. I thought I'd come with the visual of a report card because I think that's something that speaks to all of us, and that's common language that we can all understand. And what I really zoomed in on was three key criteria. Now, we looked at a lot more criteria than this when we were looking at our audit, but these were the three that we were really landing on in making our final decision. Number one, we need to look at our achievement and our growth. How are our students doing? How are they achieving? How are they growing? We needed to look at those materials. What are we putting in front of our kids? What are we providing to our teachers in order to learn and in order to teach well? And then last but not least, what offers us the most differentiated support for all of our learners? Because as I spoke of earlier, growth is what matters. Making sure that every single student has that same opportunity to learn is imperative. And the more our materials can do that naturally, the more we can really focus in on teaching and focus in on getting to know our kids. This is where we stood when we went into this audit. Our students were growing and they were achieving, and it was looking really, really good, as it did this year. However, our materials were slightly lacking. Our teachers were needing to do a lot of recreation of materials. We didn't have a digital component that students could use flexibly between their Chromebook and between their printed student materials. And we were needing to pull from a vast array of resources in order to differentiate. So those two areas were what we were really focusing in on when we were looking at new materials to support our teaching and learning at River Trails. Oops, one too far. So we narrowed it down to two. We looked at, as I talked about last month, we looked at a variety of different materials that were very highly rated through Ed Reports, which is something that we put a lot of stock in as educational experts. And the two that we narrowed down to that we felt really anchored into our belief statements were Eureka Math Squared and Illustrative Mathematics. Both of these followed our philosophy as teachers and we felt would really support our students to continue to grow and achieve at the rates they were already growing and achieving, but would also allow our teachers the materials that they needed and that they deserve in order to teach well. And here's where we landed. So I want you to take a quick look at that visual, and you can see that both of these sets of materials are very strong materials and earn what we would consider very high grades. And I'm going to move on to the next slide to explain why we felt illustrative was actually the right choice for the middle school at this given time. Oops. Okay. So we had a rubric that I shared in the memo as well as introduced a little bit again last month that looked at key areas that we were looking at in our materials. The areas highlighted in dark green and lighter shades of green are the areas that really pushed illustrative just beyond that of Eureka. So you can see that that digital curriculum for students and those digital tools for teachers highly exceeded those that were found in Eureka Squared. Now, some may say, well, digital curriculum is not everything about math. We want our students to be manipulating. We want them to be working out their work. We want them to be working with manipulatives, and I absolutely agree with you. However, I also know that these are the same students that in 2 to 3 years are going to be taking some really high-stakes assessments in mathematics on a computer. ACT is now transitioning to fully computerized. SAT is transitioning to computerized. And our students need to be given those opportunities with some digital math tools now as they're learning and as they're growing so that they can be prepared when they get to that high school stage. The illustrative math curriculum really embeds those exact same tools that those students are going to see when they get to the ACT, when they get to the SAT, and they're embedded within the curriculum. That was very important. The other piece I wanted to lean on, and that's what these little speech bubbles are here, this is the qualitative feedback from our teachers. I didn't let the teachers sit at the table and say out loud which curricula they preferred. I didn't want them to bias each other. I didn't want them to, have quieter voices, not be heard. So I presented all the data and I said, I'm going to give you 24 hours. And I'd like you to email me, call me, or text me and let me know where you landed, where you really feel. I presented price tags. I presented all the data. They saw it all. I had a couple at that table that are taxpayers within our district, looking very closely at all the information and really having to heavily weigh that information. And the next day, the feedback started to roll in, and I had a near majority that said, you know, we can't go wrong with either set of materials. However, we really feel that this is what's going to keep us all very engaged, best support our students, and help them achieve at that next higher level, which is where we bring our recommendation today. This is a key piece, the second decision-making factor, that differentiated support that I wanted to point out. This looks like a lot of a mess here for you on this illustration. However, what I want you to see is across the top, those are the grade level curricula, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Right below that are the accelerated curricula. So you can see 6A, 7A, and then algebra. The unique thing to illustrative mathematics is, rather than following the traditional pattern of when we accelerate students up one grade, they condense standards into a combined 6-7 curricula, 7-8 curricula. So what does this mean for our kids, and why is this so important? This is my illustration that I wanted to bring you this evening. Basically what this does for students is it allows them multiple entry points. So when I was trying to think of a visual to encapsulate this, all I could think of was a highway with many different places where you can come on and you can merge. Well, why does this matter? Well, our students develop at different ages, different stages, different levels of their life. Where are we to say that a student can only really be accelerated 5th going into 6th grade, or 3rd going into 4th grade? What this allows is it allows us to relook at students on an annual basis and say, you know what? They've shown a lot of maturity. They've shown a lot of growth this year. This is the year where we need to merge them on and we need to accelerate them. Why is that important? We are continuing to get a lot of pressure from policy, from high schools, to get our students to that green box. What is that green box? That's algebra. Algebra is a high school standard. However, more and more districts are continuing to try to push more and more students into algebra content by 8th grade. Our historic materials did not allow for that to happen with ease, and it created a lot of gaps in learning, and we don't believe that's what's best for kids. By using the materials that I presented here this evening, we are not creating more gaps for students. We are condensing instruction, allowing us to move at a little bit quicker pace so that we can allow the students to merge when they are ready. Last month, I was asked by Mr. Grimpy to talk a little bit about transition into middle school and how can we be sure that we're giving our students that opportunity to transition smoothly. I know this image is a lot, and the only thing I really want you to look at is that blue line. That blue line is a line that separates elementary mathematics standards from middle school mathematics standards. And what you're going to notice is there's a huge shift. Standards completely change when you leave elementary math at 5th grade and you move into 6th grade. But here's the trick. This isn't new. We've been doing this for a very, very long time. So my point in that is the transition for our middle school teachers is going to look no different with these materials than it looked prior to this year, because we are always transitioning into these new standards, the new vocabulary, the new problem-solving strategies, the new tactics, and our teachers are ready for that, and they feel these materials actually do a better job of what they have now in terms of supporting our students in that transition. So with that, I would ask the board to consider our recommendation of adopting illustrative mathematics for our entire middle school math curriculum. This includes both on-level and advanced level courses for a 5-year contract with illustrative mathematics. With your approval, we will begin our transition and professional development planning as soon as tomorrow. And I would like to spend a minute just thanking our audit team, who was absolutely fantastic to work with and lived up to that strategic goal of collaboration within our district. Thank you.
Okay, let me get a motion and a second to continue. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. Motion and a second to approve the adoption of middle school math program with illustrated mathematics at a cost not to exceed $123,249.
So moved.
Moved by Friedland.
Second.
Second by Bianchini. Any comments or questions?
I guess I just have one really, maybe this is too down in the weeds. For like the accelerated math, are they still going to have to make up their own curriculum, or are they just going to build off of that accelerated component and then just, okay, for like the 8th grade piece? Or
Yes.
sorry, the 8th grade to high school?
So we have algebra, which is our accelerated math level 1. We do have approximately 8 to 10 students each year who qualify for what we call double accelerated. They will move up with a grade level above in that, and then by their 8th grade year, they are in geometry. We have a memorandum of understanding with the high school. We have a certified high school teacher within our employees, and she teaches the high school geometry course to those students. We do offer credit bearing for that as well through that agreement.
Okay. I apologize because I felt really ignorant. I did not know that existed until I was talking to a parent, and I'm like, I'm sorry, accelerated? So it's super awesome. Okay, thanks.
I'd like to just say that the perception, whether this is fact or not, the perception has always been if your kid doesn't make it into accelerated into 6th grade, then they're just not in it. And I've been challenged by parents throughout the years what tools do we have to get them into that, whether they're through 6th or into 7th. So first of all, thank you for this curriculum. But in the future, could you keep tabs or at least present to the board when you get an opportunity to say how many kids we did move up because of how they achieved their scores in 6th grade, so we were able to move up in 7th. I think the public needs to hear that.
Absolutely.
So just to be able to have this tool is great, first of all, but now to make sure we're utilizing it and that the kids are utilizing it and succeeding because of it, I think needs to be reported out.
Yeah.
So you're setting yourself up for success. Now let's hear about it.
We're very excited to share that we're trying out what we're calling transitional algebra for next year. So it's students that historically have been on grade level in 7th grade that typically would go into grade level 8th grade. However, we've really seen growth and development in them. So our goal this year is to move them into the algebra curriculum, maybe move at a little bit slower pace at first in order to get in some of those pre-algebra concepts. Parents have been made aware that if we don't see them successfully meeting those benchmarks by the end of the year, we will recommend for algebra next year. However, our goal is really to take those 20 students and hopefully move them into high school, the next level in high school, which would be geometry the following year. So we're giving it an effort, right, Mr. Hinkle? Yeah. I can get you those numbers in Jody's next update.
Great. But thank you to you and your whole team. I think you guys made a great recommendation.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the math team did the math. Like, literally, this is very detailed and data, and thank you for all that work.
Anybody else? Okay, Mrs. Johnson, could you please call roll?
Yes. Pfisterer?
Yes.
I vote yes. Grimpy?
Yes.
Bianchini?
Yes.
Friedland?
Yes.
Camardo?
Yes.
And motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next up is business services. First up is the Renew America Schools, round 2.
Okay, so you've heard quite a bit about it, that we were part of a group of school districts here in Illinois that were awarded the Department of Energy's Renew America Schools grant, and we're actually getting ready to start implementing it with plans to put solar panels on Euclid and a battery and a microgrid controller, which you will hear more about. The Operations Committee has heard about it. You'll hear more about it at the June 25th meeting. But there is a second round to do this. We would really like to be able to do the same thing at Indian Grove School. So there's another group of school districts. There's actually more districts this time that are in the suburbs: Evanston, Bensonville, Forest Park, Norwood. So it's more of a group around this area this time. That Tim Farker, again, is putting it all together. And I'm recommending that we be part of this group to apply for the grant. It is a little bit different. It's for the same items. The grant this time, the district has to contribute 25%. However, all of this is eligible for the 30% tax rebate. So it's an upfront cost that eventually even that 25% we should get back. And the last I heard, they were going for $15 million around 2 million per school district, maybe a little bit less than that because they now have 9 school districts signed up for this. And the application needs to go in on the 13th, which is Thursday. So I'm recommending the board approve to apply. It does not commit us to actually having to do anything, spend the money. We can still go through the whole process like we are with Euclid, go out for bids, approve it that way, and then we get the money refunded after we've completed the project.
Okay, let me entertain a motion and a second to continue in partnership for the second round of the DOE America Schools Grant Solar Bus 2 Grid Public School Microgrid Project Application.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by Friedland. Any comments or questions?
My comment is always thank you for putting these together. I know it's a lot of work, but also thank you for being active in this community that of schools coming together to work toward this money. I think that obviously makes a big difference when you're applying together. And so I'm happy that we're included and are active within this in these group of schools.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, my commentary was going to be very similar, but like the fact that I think you highlight the fact that we try to be sustainable and we have a green focus, that we get invited to participate in these things. So I hope to see that continue. And then this is a silly question possibly. Why do people not participate? Like, why are there not 500 schools signing up for this? How does this come in such a small group?
Because we don't want 500 schools to participate.
I know, I don't.
Because they
want
don't have
500 people,
Lindell.
but I'm asking, like, what is?
I'm trying to get the word out. I actually just 2 weeks talked to Evanston 65, and they signed up to do this because they do want to make their schools more sustainable. Okay. There are schools doing things, and they're not part of this. They may put solar panels on with a power purchase agreement or.
Okay. So they're just finding other avenues to get to the same.
Yeah, there are things happening and some different avenues.
Okay. Because it just baffles me that more people don't take advantage.
Me too.
Well, there's only one Lindell. So
True.
No pressure, Ryan.
Ryan's into that sustainability too.
Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Johnson, could you please call roll?
Yes. I vote yes. Grimpy?
Yes.
Friedland?
Yes.
Camardo?
Yes.
Bianchini?
Yes.
Pfister?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, committee reports. First one is the policy committee.
It is.
It is.
So I'm just going to read the nice little write-up that we have here. So we have the board press packet 114 for second read because we had a new policy added, and that was policy 270. And that was the discrimination and harassment on the bias of race, color, and national origin prohibited. So we have to have that as a second reading, and then this will come back at our July. It'll come back at the June 25th. It'll come back at the July meeting for approval, because I think we have to have it up for one whole, right, for another stint.
Sure.
Right. So this will come back, and it should be in the the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions about it, or? Okay, wonderful. That's all I have.
Okay, let me get a motion and a second to approve press packet 114 as presented for the second reading.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Friedland, second by Bianchini. Any comments or questions? Okay, could you please call roll?
I vote yes. Camardo?
Yes.
Pfister?
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
Bianchini? Yes. Friedland?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is the Operations Committee. Mr. Ronstadt is not here. We're going to cover this at the next meeting.
Well, do you want to highlight some of we have a slide deck,
Oh, okay.
some pictures and things?
That'd be great.
Do you want to take it, Lyndall? Or do you want me to?
I can take it. So you I'll wait till it gets up there because it's all pictures.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's only been 14 days and it's been pretty amazing. So I can't wait any longer.
Okay. All right. So we kind of forget that, but we do actually have construction going on over at Indian Grove. They have been putting up fences and removing stones and getting started on all of the tear off and first part they have to do on the roof. Jody and Dan took some great pictures.
Yeah, I think overall we've gotten lucky with the weather, and I don't want to jinx it, but most of the rain has come at night. So they're continuously working during the day and just moving through sections, but no, I don't want to say it.
Yeah,
it's been
we
going
don't
well.
want to jinx it.
It's been growing great so far.
Because the roof is dependent on the weather. Euclid, if you haven't been over there, it's absolutely amazing. The whole school, kudos to Karen and all her staff getting everything all ready to move. And I mean, by noon on that Friday before Memorial Weekend, they were ready to, the movers were there and moving everything out of the classrooms and into the gyms, and they were done so they could start construction. It was amazing. I wasn't here, but I heard all about it.
That picture on the last day of school is literally 2 hours after the 5th grade ceremony. So
Yeah,
2 hours on the left and then another 3-4 hours on the right. The planning and the coordination on the front end obviously made such a difference on the back end, but that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and between Dan and Karen and Dan working with the moving company ahead of time to make sure that they knew exactly what needed to happen, it just went really smoothly. Then they went through and demolished the school from inside, pretty much. It's pretty much gone. The floors, the boilers, the bathrooms. They had to take out some asbestos. You can see here, it's just clean through to the windows. That's the way. Yeah,
it's almost hard to even recognize what parts of the building you're looking at in those pictures because there's nothing there to identify what part of the building it is.
Yeah, and let's see what you got here. They, I mean,
Karen, you nervous yet? You all right? Okay.
I mean, they are moving so fast too. It's really good.
So they literally had to slice the boiler in pieces. They took a welder or some kind of flaming, sparking thing and were cutting it in pieces. Those are the remnants of the boiler pieces that you all saw when you
and Dan
walked
got a
through
few
there.
parts out of there first before they did that, so he could use them if need be at Indian Grove or here at the middle school.
Just a curiosity question. The teachers packed up their rooms and everything. Where is all of their stuff?
In the gym. The big gym.
It's all in the gym?
I have a video if you want to see it after. I took a panoramic video. It's all in the gym.
It's all in the gym.
And was all in the gym by Friday.
And it's
6
just
o'clock.
on the outside of the gym. It's they still have room.
So it's not off-site?
No.
So
that was I mean, there was a lot of smart planning. Kudos to Dan because he made sure certain groups got in here earlier so that a lot of the stuff that had to be done in the gym up in the ceilings got done ahead of time so that we could store everything in there.
That was spring break work in the
spring
gym.
break. And then some
so
after hours work too. The electrical room is about done now.
So that answers my question when we went on the tour and everything of why the gym floor wasn't being redone. Was that already done over spring break?
No, that was not in the plan to do that gym floor.
So this is why it wasn't in the plan.
No, it was also didn't need to be. It didn't really need it. I mean, the reason it wasn't being redone was because it didn't really need it. The one that we've talked a little bit about is the cafeteria, but decided it doesn't need to be done at this point. It can wait.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So yeah, and I was going to say in this last picture, I mean, you can see all those are new. The new ductwork is in, and then it goes down. You can see electrical boxes and electricals in, and they're already putting up drywall.
Yeah,
So
go
they're
back one,
working
you can
through
see the frame-
one
the
wing at a
framing.
time, but that's the speedy wing. That's the one that's moving the fastest.
Yeah, this is the framing. It's steel framing, so, it's not studs. So that's all ready to put drywall on. Get going. And you're going to, the library is amazing. You can see just the light in there and the space. It's going to be wonderful.
Okay, that's unbelievable. Next up is the President's Report, upcoming event. We have the soccer pitch soft opening, which would be this Saturday at 11 a.m. at Euclid School. We will have a more formal celebration in the fall when there's no construction going on the grounds. We have a Finance Committee meeting on June 18th at 6 p.m. And the next Board of Education meeting is June 25th, 7 p.m. right here at the middle school. Next up is the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Megerly, you have the floor.
Okay, a couple of brief presentations. The first one is some of the information and data I collected regarding strategic planning process. So you all know our strategic plan will be set to sunset in 2025. So this is just preliminary planning and data collection to get feedback from you in terms of next steps. In what direction that you would like to see me go with this. So this first slide really just is some of the background data. There's quite a few districts right in our area who have gone through this process just in the last few years. So this is data probably that's only like within the last 3 or 4 years. So on the left-hand side, 82% of the districts that I surveyed hired a consultant. 67% of those consultants took the entire lead. Like they ran the whole process, meaning, doing the meetings, the agendas, collecting feedback, surveys, everything. They took the lead. Only one district took the lead and did the whole strategic planning themselves. And 33 or a third of the districts surveyed had a hybrid approach, meaning they worked with a consultant, but they also had a role in the process. So they probably gave them pieces of the process. And one district is just revising, and they're not going through an entire process to rewrite, just revising, they're calling it. On the list on the right are the various consultants that they've hired to help them with the process. So I've just listed them there. I asked them for pros and cons working with the consulting firms, since most of them seem to work with them. Some of the pros is really just like the organization and facilitation of the process. Obviously, it's their job, so it's a seamless process for them because that's what they do. That's what you're paying them to do. They're very good at keeping the process very tight and clear. A third party is running it, so you have no bias, and the superintendent can fully participate, or whoever your team is running, they don't have to run the meetings. They can participate in the process. And a lot of the firms that they use, one of the pros was that these people that led the groups really have a good command of the room. And when you're working with various types of people, they're very good at keeping them on track and keeping them focused at the work. Some of the cons was that the districts didn't like following some of the models that could be super rigid, and you can't be flexible with those models because that's their process. Obviously, the cost is a con, and that you may request them to adapt their structure to meet your needs. Sometimes I think firms are good about that, and sometimes not. And that one company used Word documents to send to the district. So anytime there was an edit or an update, it had to be resaved and sent. So it was just cumbersome, but refused to move to a Google Doc. And so some of those work preferences of the consultant can be just different than what you're used to. So that was some of the information I collected. The next slide breaks down the costs. The low end in hiring a consultant is about 15 to 18,000, and the year that they did that, those districts was around 20 to 21. The high end, that's super high end. That was just last year, 160,000 and 50,000 in 2020. If I take out the low end and those high end, that's how I came up with your mid-range is about 35,000. And it really just depends how much involvement the consultants have. If you have a hybrid, you're somewhere in the middle or lower. You know, I would say it varies 10 to 15,000 if it's more of a hybrid or the district is taking a large chunk of it versus them running it. Just depends on how much of a lead they're going to take. But costly nonetheless. I think some of the things that we need to consider as a whole is really what's the desired outcome. You know, are we just looking to replicate kind of this one pager that we've had for the last 5 years with some goals and objectives? Are you all wanting to see something more in depth with like a dashboard that breaks out benchmarks, monitors that progress along the way? What is the time investment that you would like to see my team take on? Most of the processes, I mean, again, this is just average, is really a good 3 to 5 full day meetings easily. There's also team meetings to plan for those all day meetings and preparation for those meetings. And then you've got to collect and analyze the data behind the scenes. So not only are you investing time facilitating those meetings, but you're investing the time prepping and then disaggregating whatever information you've collected after. Obviously the behind the scenes work. And then the compiling of the information. Again, like there's got to be somebody that's going to do the actual writing and wordsmithing, and then any graphic design or dashboard design or any pieces that go along with it. So just try to lay out all of those considerations and really then just kind of looking for some feedback, like what is your desired outcome of our next strategic plan? What's your comfort level with that kind of investment? And then anything you would like me to see do as next steps. Again, I didn't dig into any consultants. I didn't go anywhere, just very broad, because then I figured depending on your direction, I could spend time digging into wherever you'd like to see us go. So, thoughts?
I'll start off. ISB doesn't have any consultants for strategic plan like they do superintendent search?
Well, some of this, like Hazard Young and ATIA, they're the last one listed on the consultant. They also do superintendent searches, but I didn't see anybody who used like IASB specifically.
And I don't know that they do. I don't
know. I could look into it.
One of the questions that I have, I don't know if it's for the board or it's for you, Jody, but with the construction going on at Euclid now, Indian Grove to be going on next summer, to have a new principal here at the middle school, a new assistant principal here at the middle school, a new assistant principal at Indian Grove. I'm just curious if it would behoove us to just kind of tweak what we have and more like extend it and use our time wiser to let everybody kind of get into their new roles and develop what they think that the strategic plan should be once they're in those. We also will have a new contract soon with the union, and how will that impact the strategic plan? So I question the timing. There's never a great time to just to kind of stop everything and look at this, but I don't know that now is the best. So those are my concerns.
Well, sorry. Go ahead.
I just would like to build on what Bill had said as well in looking at some of these other considerations with all of the perpetual balls that we have in the air right now and looking at some of these other considerations, the realistic expectations that we as a board can have on you and your staff, especially because of the fact we're also highlighting just an hour ago that, your staff, your team is in need of some permanency and some internal support as well. So looking at some of these other considerations, also including on that, we really need to have a realistic expectation of just how much more we could really ask of your team to be taking on with that. And then looking at with these other considerations, comparing that investment, saying if your team is going to be taking on something like that, is that really the best use of your team's time at this particular juncture? And are we really being cost effective in doing that by keeping it in-house would be my only concern.
My comment is short. I agree with Bill. Tweak and extend. Background, I have sat through a consultant. So this would be, let's see, 3 years of Jody, 5 years of Nancy, 10 years of Dane. So that's what, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 years ago. I sat through this with a consulting firm. It's a long, drawn-out, tedious thing. They took the lead on everything. What was nice about that is that there was a lot of community participation, and I don't mean parents from the school. I mean business guys, empty nesters, parents whose kids were in private schools. There was a cross-section like you wouldn't believe. It was phenomenal, and it was a lot of things that we learned from the community from that. When that expired, Dane was here as the superintendent, and what we did was we tweaked and extended it because we hadn't reached we hadn't achieved everything that we wanted to. And we did that for like 2 or 3 years until we actually achieved what we did with what we had wanted to do with that strategic plan that the consultant helped us with. And then after that, Dane did his own because of what is in here, this modeling thing. We had to follow the model of the consulting firm, so Dane did his own. It was really nice. Nancy came along and did her own. I have no problem with us because of what's going on in the district and all that. I don't think we've achieved everything in our current plans, so we can just reaffirm it, because what you would do is at a board meeting, you just vote to reaffirm the strategic plan and move it along. And it then, instead of expiring in 2025, it'll expire in 2026. And then in 2026, we decide what we want to do. But I do agree with Bill, and Kim, that there's just too much, that's just putting too much on the teams to do with all the construction that we're doing with the new curriculums and all that other stuff. So, but just to let you know that if you want the community, the consulting firm is the way you want to go. And I'm not saying that Dane didn't bring in community and Nancy didn't either, but they kind of cherry-picked. They cherry-picked who they wanted in the community. The other way, we had over 100 people, and that we took everybody, So just, something, food for thought for down the road.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to say that when I think and look at the strategic plan, I think, well, what do we want to get out of it? So one is that touch base with the community and bring in voices that aren't just those that attend the schools. And I don't know how to accomplish that without doing the full, but maybe there's some hybrid version of it. I think the other is a structure, right? There are these rocks that are kind of unmovable that we set for ourselves, and it gives you focus and direction for the next 5 years. Probably haven't hit all of those rocks, but earlier we talked about the data points and stuff. This gives you an opportunity to revisit them and relook at the tools that you want to use and the benchmarks you want to set without upending the whole thing. Because I think in general, the strategic plan is what our focus wants to be, right? I don't know can't think of anything huge that would change. That being said, I did briefly look at all of these reports, and I don't know if District 62 is the $120,000 site or plan, but theirs is very just impressive with the amount of the way they tell their story. I was really impressed with that. The other ones, didn't do anything for me, so that's nice.
I'm totally with you. I went to all those sites, and it was not exciting, most of them. But this was the same, and I had the same opinion of 62. And I do want to say, so last time we worked on the strategic plan, I was the representative from the board, and I believe Kim and her children participated. But this document, and the structure behind it, even when we were pulling it together, it was supposed to be fluid. It was supposed to be able to grow with us and to be, right. It was kind of almost planned with the idea of if this is something that we need to carry on, which is why it is slightly ambiguous, which I know some people don't necessarily agree with and some are okay with. But that was the purpose behind it, to have that fluidity so that, depending who was on the board or who was in the administration, that there would be an ability to kind of edit things as needed. So just feedback for that.
Louis, anything to add? You don't have to, just want to give you the opportunity.
I'm a big thinker.
Great.
Can we go back to your questions? I like to answer them.
The first one was what's a desired outcome?
What is the
kind of
desired
thing.
outcome?
Yeah.
So I think one of Becky's points that I agree with, I like I guess for me personally, not speaking on behalf of the board, desired outcome is what is our focal point? And when I made my comment that everybody's very aligned because they're all looking exactly where we want to get to. Mm-hmm. And so maybe we just want to extend a year or two, but can we get a definitive timeline for that extension? And is there anything we wanted to add to it? And so I don't know if I want to speak on behalf of your team and who you would involve to say, is this next year too much of their time? Maybe it's not. We've gone through so much of the construction to this point. There's not a lot of decisions for them to make. Now it's just we're getting a lot closer to the execution side. Maybe it's a good thing that you have new assistant principals, because now they're contributing toward the extension of the strategic plan. So now they feel some ownership and part of the development and extension versus the negative of saying, they're too new and you got to train them. I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide. But I guess my desired outcome of the strategic planning is to be focused on something and not, it's just perpetually getting extended on. Comfort level with the investment, I think it depends what it is. 160,000 I think seems crazy. 15,000 also seems kind of crazy. What are you even getting for 15,000? So how much you want to take on, I think is my comfort level. And the time is everybody's willingness to invest in it. And if you see the benefit of working towards something, then you're probably going to want to put in the time to continue working towards it. And we have a year to go. So it's not a rush situation. You could spread it out. So to see as next steps, I'd like to see your feedback in meeting with your team or the key people that you want to involve in the plan, and come back and say, well, this is what we think would work for us now, and where do we meet?
Yeah.
So happy to revisit.
And to your point, Louis, I like the fact that we've got a lot of new sets of eyes on this. I mean, Amy, you were with us when we did it. Karen, were you? Okay. So, that's huge. Our staff is almost completely turned over. Mm-hmm. So to get all these new eyes on it and to get them to tweak it and extend it, I still think could be very beneficial.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful. I think fundamentally, I mean, we haven't talked too much about it, but I think everybody loves and believes in the heart ready, head ready, the whole like foundation of it. I feel like everybody's loves that, believes in that. So I think we have a really good foundation. I will probably spend some next steps connecting with superintendents who have done refreshes just to learn more about that. What does that look like? And then they're all leaving for a few weeks. But again, I've got the whole year, which is why I wanted to start pretty early. But we'll come back with an update. Okay. Yeah, completely. You know, it's, my first strategic planning process too. And so I just want to make sure whatever I dig my, start focusing in on, and is a desired outcome of everybody here as well. So
I just want to add that 20 years ago when we got the consultants in here, what they spent most of their time on was developing the mission statement, the beliefs, what else is there?
probably vision and what we believe.
Those three
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
It was mind-boggling because we had hundreds of people, and there were stickies and all of those rip-off things all over the rooms we were in. And what you see is our mission statement now was something from 20 years ago, and it's still apropos. And our belief statements, they're on some documents around here every now and then, but that's basically what you're paying for. And the heart ready, head ready, that whole thing, that's perfect. It goes with our mission and our vision and our belief statements. So all we need is those little things what is it we want to move forward with and focus on coming up. So, the hard parts are already done. The expensive parts are already done.
All right, thank you
So thank you,
much.
Christy, because I know you were a big part of that.
All right, communications to and from the board.
Oh, wait, sorry, I've got one more
Whoop.
thing. So the next thing is just a quick review of policy 2140. It's why can't I think of the word? The exhibit is in your folder, but this was in the policy packet. It was very explicit about it being reviewed with all board members, and honestly, I just thought it would be good to do a quick run through because I know you guys aren't all on the policy committee, but it's a lot of words, so I apologize. And the policy was very explicit about you all having a copy of the exhibit and reviewing that. So that's your homework. Do you want to pull up the presentation for me, Patty? Thanks. Okay, so really just basic summary. So this is board communication. So I know you know a lot of this, but email, electronic chat, chat features in your email, instant messaging, texting, and any form of social networking are considered electronic communication. So any electronic communication among a majority or more of a board quorum shall not, means that's absolutely not, shall, be used for purpose of discussing district business. So looking at what's FOIA-able, emails, that one's an easy one. Your emails are public record unless there's a specific exemption, which honestly is not likely. You can look at that link, but none of those really would be part of our everyday business. If you use your district provided device or email to discuss public business, that's an easy one. That's FOIA-able. But if you use your private device and email address, the communication is subject to FOIA if it meets those terms. So even if you're on your private email, your private device, your private information, if you are talking about public business, if you are preparing something that has to do with public business, that could be FOIA-able. Communications to and from the board, the next slide. We do have an electronic link posted on the website for community to use. It's a general board address. One thing that we don't do, but we need to figure out a system for, is it's very clear that it says during the board's regular meetings, a report for the board's consideration, all the questions or communications submitted through the active link, along with the status of the district's response, should be in the board meeting packet. So I don't get those emails, so I don't know when you're getting inquiries from the public. Obviously, like junk mail or, spam or advertising, whatever, is not, but it would be something that I would need to make sure to follow up on. So I can work with Bill on a system for that, but that should be in the board packet for you all.
Could I suggest
Sure.
that it be like the FOIA? We had 5 emails from the community, and they are attached in your board packet with the board's response.
Yeah, I mean, it
Just
could
like we
actually
do
be
on the-
another
Yeah.
agenda item.
Right.
Email
Right.
inquiries or
with
whatever.
those same type of wording and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of them, so many times it's going to be none, but that's just one thing that we haven't been doing, so.
Well, just to set everyone's expectations, I may have gotten 4 emails from the community this year, maybe. So don't think you're missing out on a lot. If anybody wants to monitor that email address.
I think we get it now. I think we all get it. Maybe I got one. I just had a question about the Board of Education email inquiries. So if someone's just writing a general statement, is that included, or is it somebody asked a specific question?
I think if it requires like follow-up or work from the district, because
Okay.
it's I think you have it in your folder, but it basically says like the superintendent will make sure that questions or communication. So maybe it's a question or an inquiry that needs to be followed up on. And I would say, like, if they're just sharing something, I'm thinking of an email that I was copied on, I don't know, a month and a half ago. It was sharing a really nice, positive thing about our school, but it had to do with our school. But I get a lot of ads. I get a lot of, solicitation of goods and stuff like that. I don't think that's part of this. Okay. And just I threw in the board agreement that Mr. Grimpy has the responsibility to respond to all of those and VCC the rest of the board. The next slide is just communications between and among board members outside of a board meeting. What's allowed and not allowed. Again, I think this is a repeat. Obviously, you can send and share information. In the document, it talks about putting in the title, like, don't forward this, but we use the blind copy system and indicate that we've blind copy. So you can't reply to everyone that way. So that seems to be working. That's our preferred method of sending and sharing information. You can talk about anything except district business with more than one other member. And then any information that really doesn't pertain to district business. And you can talk to one other board member about district business. One thing I found interesting, obviously discussing district business with more than one board member is not allowed, but this line about a board member should not facilitate interactive communication by discussing district business in a series of visits with or telephone calls or emails to board members individually. So that I haven't really heard it worded like that. And then forwarding email is not allowed, received from another board member. Okay, so, and then the exhibit is in your packet for your reading pleasure. And I've done my deed of sharing that with all the board.
Anything else for your report?
Couple things, just real quick. Patty took care of registration for III that opened last week. And so I've got my email. You should have seen that come through. And then today I just got the new press policy 115. So I'll be working with you guys on a meeting for that. And that's all.
Okay, we had one FOIA request. Thank you, Patty. Future topics. We have no pending future topics. Would anybody have a future topic for consideration that you'd like to discuss? Okay, hearing none, let me entertain a motion in a second to go into closed session for the matters of personnel at 9:02 p.m. No action will be taken upon the exit of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Friedland, second by Bianchini.
That. Yeah.
That was close. By Pfister, sorry.
By me and then Pfister. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Pfister? I vote yes. Camardo?
Yes.
Friedland?
Yes.
Bianchini?
Yes.
And Grimpy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, let's take a little break. We'll go into closed session at 9:10. Stretch your legs.
Becky.
Becky Fister, and Mark.
Okay, yeah. Ready? Yes. Camardo, Bianchini?
Yes.
I vote yes. Now Camardo.
Yes.
Grimpy?
Yes.
Friedland?
Yes.
And Fister.
Yes.
Okey-doke.
The next meeting is June 25th, right here.